Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another weekly breakdown here of the EPL DFS slate for DraftKings and FanDuel. My name is Rob, and I'm part of the RotoPros team over at rotopros.com. And yeah, I'm here to break down another EPL slate for you. I got my lucky bathrobe on. So let's just jump right into it as we always do. I'm going to start with a little bit of the screen sharing here and hopefully give you guys just a direct breakdown of how I do things. So let's pop that over. Oh, wrong one. That didn't work. Let's try that again. There we go. So let's take a quick look at the schedule for this weekend. Obviously, the early slate game is going to be Manchester United at West Ham. If you are playing it, I think a Manchester United defensive stack's the only really way to attack this, and I don't even think that's very viable. They're fighting pretty bad right now. Pogba, Mourinho, the whole crew. They don't seem very. I don't want to say set, but they definitely don't seem very content whatsoever these days. So I'm really not looking to target Man United. Thankfully, they're in the early slate, and we really don't have to worry too much about it. But yeah, breaking into the main slate here, it's another big slate. So you got Tottenham making the trip to Huddersfield Town. Watford going to Arsenal, Southampton going to Wolves and Wolverhampton, Leicester making the trip up to Newcastle, Brighton making a huge trip to Manchester, geographically more than actual importance. Fulham are traveling to Everton, and then the late game, we have a replay of this midweek, Liverpool versus Chelsea. Now, if you happen to miss the midweek, I know that's spelled poorly, but yeah, this is one of the two competitions for England. Basically, all the major professional teams are put into this competition. Some still have to qualify, but the long and short of this is some of the big teams played this week. You can see this was the games were on Tuesday. Burnley got put out by Burton, which is very, very definitive of how Burnley's season's been going. Bournemouth beat Blackburn barely. You can see Man City easily took care of Oxford, but just a quick peek here. Something that's important to look at these midweek ties and why I'm bringing it up is if you take a look at the lineups, it gives you a really good idea who played full minutes, and that can help you predict what this weekend's going to look like. So, for example, Gabriel Jesus played a full 90 minutes this midweek, so chances are Aguero's going to start and get 90 minutes. You can see again, Mahrez, he played significant minutes, so chances are he's not going to be playing this weekend. Sterling got some minutes. Gundogan got some minutes for David Silva, which is interesting because it kind of looks like Gundogan and Silva are replacements for each other. They don't seem to be doing the same thing at the same time. You'll see Sane didn't play at all, which would lead me to believe that if he starts this weekend with Sterling, he's probably going to get 90 minutes or close to. But you'll also notice Aguero didn't even feature whatsoever, which would give you a pretty good indication that Aguero should be starting and playing a full 90 minutes. Now, next week we do have Champions League. I'll talk about that at the end of the video. But in terms of this weekend, we can at least assume that Aguero will be starting and Jesus will be on the bench probably for the whole game, simply because of what he did there in the midweek. Fulham beat Millwall. Crystal Palace beat Brom. Man United got put out by Derby. Now, this is pretty crazy. If you're not familiar with Derby County, their manager is currently Frank Lampard, the former Chelsea England superstar. So it's kind of interesting that they beat them, and it's pretty funny. Everyone hit it except for, isn't that a classic Phil Jones missing the penalty shot, and Derby ended up winning. So good for Derby, laughing at Man United. They actually played a half-decent team too. It wasn't just random. So Romero took a red card. Ashley Young, Dalot played out wide. Matic played the full 120 minutes. Martial played the full 120 minutes. Lukaku played a full 120 minutes, which is really interesting to me. I know they're thin up front, but yeah, that's a huge risk that did not pay off. So that's just important to remember here. This was 120 minutes. So that could really play the early slate. If you're involved with that, it could really make a difference with someone like Martial, is probably not going to see the field. But yeah, continuing on really quickly here, there's not really a whole lot. West Ham beat Macclesfield Town by 8-0, which isn't that big of a surprise. Arsenal and Brentford, Tottenham and Watford. This is another rather important game. I know I skipped. I'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, again, it shows you what happened here and who played what. Now, Eriksson sounds like he's going to be out this weekend. He didn't feature at all. Same with Harry Kane. He'll be in this weekend, though. Harry Kane will be playing the full 90 minutes, I have to assume, up front. It'll be interesting, though, to see who starts for Eriksson. Dele Alli and Lamia played a full 120 minutes here. Harry Winks played a full 120 minutes. So it's really hard to predict who's going to see the start and the full 90 minutes. My predictions on Son. He came on here for a few minutes. I think he's probably going to see 90 minutes, but we'll talk about that a little bit later here. But yeah, this was a big game. Again, it was really interesting. Check out how this goals happened. Basically, Watford were up 1-0, took a red card. Spurs scored 2 goals, and then Watford tied up with barely any time left. So interesting game. Spurs came out on top, obviously, and Everton and Southampton play on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday. But this was obviously the game of the midweek. Hazard won it with a goal in the final minutes. Crazy game. If you have a chance, watch at least the highlights. It was really entertaining. So, yeah, that was basically the midweek. Excuse me, I wanted to quickly touch on this. And you can see exactly who played again. There was no Salah. Milner started. Keita played the full 100 or full 90, in this game. No Trent Alexander-Arnold and no Robertson. So, again, we can kind of assume those two are going to be in there. And Van Dijk didn't feature, and he may be back this week, which would most likely push Matip and out with Joe Gomez back in with Van Dijk. But Lovren will probably be the starter, if anybody. And you can see, again, this wasn't really overly relevant, except for the fact that Pedro didn't play at all, and Willian came off for Hazard, which was kind of interesting. And then Victor Moses switched side with Hazard, who scored the goal from the right-hand side here. But yeah, this was definitely the game of the week, and it's this weekend is probably going to be another canceled game, but we'll talk about that here in very shortly. But I just wanted everyone to get a good glimpse at this because it is extremely relevant to how you approach your weekend, because depending on the minutes from the midweek and injuries too, if there are any significant injuries, that can really play a part come the weekend. So I just want everyone to get a quick look at that and have a quick little laugh at Burnley, the poor guys. But yeah, this weekend, I think there's some really interesting plays. Let's jump right into it. There's no real reason. What I'll actually do is, so nobody sees my lineups, is I'll just take his away from that screen for a second. I have all my lineups in and everything already for the weekend. I'm really focused on this weekend in particular. I felt that it came together really quickly for me, almost instantly this week, leading up to the weekend. So yeah, as always, let's start at goalkeepers here. I'll try not to go down and show all my cards and go up and show my cards. Most of my cashes are up here and my GPPs are down there, so I'll try and keep it in the middle here. But yeah, let's start with keepers. I don't think Brighton are going to get enough shots to make Ederson worthwhile. And if they do get any kind of shots, one of them's probably going to go in the net. Ederson's, despite having back-to-back clean sheets here, really hasn't had much to shake about this season. Three weak clean sheets lost here. So we can probably guess that Man City are going to pump Brighton for at least 4 goals. But at the same time, it only takes 1 goal, and Ederson's completely shot, completely done in either format. So I'm just not interested in 6K. I think there's a lot better places to spend down this slate. Peter Cech's interesting, but I'm not interested. 5.7K is way too expensive. Doesn't even matter what he does. There's just other better options here. Arsenal don't allow enough shots on net for Cech to really pay off. Now you can see, obviously, I'm eating my words here a little bit on Everton, but Everton are kind of a random case in the sense that they take a lot more shots than most other teams, and Chelsea, of course, is Chelsea. But yeah, that doesn't interest me. 5.7K. In terms of what Spurs are going to be doing here, I'm assuming it's going to be Gazzaniga that's going to be starting in the net. So 5.6K isn't too much. Huddersfield is kind of the same boat as Brighton. I expect Brighton to shoot more than Huddersfield, but at the same time, I expect Brighton to score before Huddersfield. So I think this is a really clean sheet option. 5.6K isn't too much to ask. Huddersfield have only scored 3 goals all season, so it's like I'm not sure. They haven't even scored at home yet this season. So I just don't see Huddersfield putting multiple past Gazzaniga, let alone one. And in the sense too, he's still looking for a clean sheet. He hasn't had one yet. I think not as many people will be on this as they should be because he hasn't had a clean sheet yet. And Spurs haven't really been great, especially under Vorm. He was particularly poor. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking at Gazzaniga. Probably more of a GPP play, honestly. I just think that salary is still too much to ask for cash. I think it's pretty strapped this week with Aguero. So you really need those extra $100, $200, $300 this slate to really make it pay off. And this is definitely where I'm going to be starting every single one of my cards. The very first name I click, Rio Patricio on Wolves for only 5.3K on DraftKings. All season, Wolves have been keeping every single one of their games under 2 goals. The clean sheet is probably, if not likely, it's definitely the most in consideration out of the entire slate. Out of every single keeper, Rio Patricio definitely has the biggest clean sheet upside. Southampton are really bad. They're really bad away from home. Actually, let me rephrase that. They're absolutely atrocious away from home. So I have no problem looking at Rio Patricio here, who has held City, Man United, all sorts of talent at bay all season. Southampton don't offer anything that should make us fear some sort of blowout. 5.3K is an incredible price. He's going to get saves. He has an incredible clean sheet uptick, and I'm pretty sure the win is well in play too. So I have no problem from 5.3K if you are looking to start off your card with a really good sure win clean sheet opportunity. Easily the number 1 keeper of the slate is Rio Patricio. It's not even close, actually. He is hands down the number 1 keeper of the slate. Now, a lot of this has to do with the fact that the other 2 viable salaries for keepers, that are going to win the game have literally no chance at a clean sheet bonus. I say literally no chance in the sense Jordan Pickford's been 2 seasons now of struggling to find a clean sheet with Everton. It's not even his fault. It's just he's an incredible keeper. The team's just not meant to defend. They've never been made to defend. Excuse me. They're very suspect at the back, and that's being generous. They're very injured right now too, so I just don't expect a clean sheet. I'll talk about this game a little bit more as we get closer to the more attacking threats. But in terms of defense, there's literally in terms of goalkeeper, there's literally nothing to look for on Everton. And a very similar situation can be said here from the Leicester-Newcastle game, which would be the next place people would probably be looking after Czech and Ederson. And frankly, this is another game where you have 2 teams that on the regular struggle for clean sheets. I think Dubravka is interesting in the sense that he's at home, but that's basically all I'm going to give him. He had the clean sheet last week because Zaha wasn't at 100%, and he had the clean sheet against Cardiff because they literally didn't get a shot on net. So I don't know. It's not really the place you want to look. And Schmeichel's just atrocious at clean sheets. He's a poor man's Pickford. Obviously, he had one against Wolves, but that was it's considered the luckiest game of the season so far by a long shot. And if anything, all Wolves games are low scoring. So you can always walk into a Wolves game expecting a clean sheet for either of the keepers, which I'll talk about here in 2 seconds. But yeah, Schmeichel is just not someone you want to look for a clean sheet. For a win, sure. 4.8K, sure, that's okay. But like you can't even take that in cash because Rio Patricio has so much obscene much more upside than he does, and even Gazinga has a lot more upside than Dubravka does at home. So I don't know. I really struggle to take any keeper other than those two, especially in the 4K range. So notice Michael. That's pretty simple. Now Alex McCarthy is someone I'm considering for GPP for a few reasons. Mostly because, like I said, Wolves are a team that are going to keep every game low scoring. So as soon as you have a low scoring game, there's an opportunity for a clean sheet bonus, just a base opportunity. It just so happens Southampton have some really high ceiling players here. McCarthy's more than capable of rocking out 5 or 6 saves, which is enough to help you win a slate. For example, the game against Crystal Palace, that absolutely smashed the slate to shreds from 4.3K. And that's the kind of game we're looking at this slate. Wolves aren't a team to run up the score, but at the same time, they're a team. Jimenez has one of the highest shot counts in the league. They're going to put shots on net. They cross the ball a lot. So you know McCarthy's going to get action, and you know it's going to be a low-scoring game. Literally, compared against the entire field, that puts him in a very close second behind Patricio in terms of just overall expected ceiling. It could be another slate breaker this weekend because the Wolves aren't going to score too much. So I don't know. Obviously, he has 2 defenders that are incredible too. I'll talk about that shortly. They're just way too cheap on both sides. So I'm not crazy about Southampton ever. Especially when they are away from home. But in terms of just having some upside, McCarthy trumps a lot of different keepers this slate. And like the same is issue with Fulham as with Everton and Leicester. They just can't keep a clean sheet for the life of them. Fabry will go out and make 8 saves, but he can't keep a clean sheet. I don't know. Like the saves are there, right? That's the thing, is that they're rocking lots of saves, but there's literally not even a grasp of a clean sheet opportunity. Where at least McCarthy has done it this season and done it in the past. At the start of the week, Losa was my runaway, easily my number 1 keeper of the slate. I felt that Spurs weren't going to score very much, and in terms of all the value keepers, he was by far the best. Sorry, I gotta stop doing that. And obviously here we have Ben Foster, who's kind of in the same situation. Arsenal and Tottenham just aren't going to score as much as Man City or potentially even Everton and Fulham together. So I don't know. It's there, right? I'm not crazy about it. I don't want to do it. But from only 3.8K and 3.9K, the things you can do with those salaries is monstrous, monumental, the slate. Excuse me. I don't see Arsenal scoring 4 goals. I think Tottenham probably can. The deeper into the week I'm getting, I think Tottenham can score some goals. So I guess Ben Foster isn't the worst player in Watford, but yeah, I'm not going down this deep this slate. I did build a few cards with Loso. I dropped them this morning, early this morning, the very early hours, for mostly Rio Patricio and excuse me, Gazinga. So yeah, that's definitely where I'm going to be starting. Easily the best keeper of the slate. It's not even close, not even comparable. If Southampton score, I wouldn't be surprised. But if they score more than 2, I will be floored if Southampton are the first team to allow to score 2 goals on more than 2 goals on Wolves this season. Eat my own words there. Sorry. And Wolves haven't allowed a forward to score this season, so I think that's another interesting stat that you can really play with. But yeah, let's jump right over to defenders, and really the 2 first available defenders are the first 2 that you should be playing, especially in cash. Excuse me. Kieran Trippier should go off this slate. He's a sure shoe-in for a clean sheet bonus. Has the highest cross floor, 40 crosses so far this season. Especially if Eriksen's out, he's probably going to handle a lot of the free kicks. So I think Trippier has all the upside, all the floor. A little expensive, 6.6, but honestly, that shouldn't hold you back from everything he brings this slate. And Lucas Digne on Everton, the French international, has led the league in back-to-back slates for cross counts. So honestly, and even against Huddersfield, he was still doing flames. So 5.6 is a little bit much to ask. He's getting 90 minutes though, especially with Coleman out. I don't see him coming off the field. So it's really hard to ignore those two guys. There's a few other guys I do want to talk about here. Obviously, Trent Alexander-Arnold should feature 90 minutes, go up against Hazard, have tons of chances for defensive production, but it's probably going to take a card by the end of the game, just the fouls he'll be forced to take. And I don't like the clean sheet opportunity. So 5.4K is a little bit too much to ask. If James Milner's out, I'll consider Alexander-Arnold. But if anything, I'll probably just keep looking down here because I think Holboss makes a great GPP option. The reason I don't want to take him in cash is because every single time he seems to have a big outing, he's taking cards. And that's a massive, massive negative when you get to the end here. 7 yellow cards this season. That's over 20 fantasy points lost of cards. That's honestly probably in the entire league, he's probably had the most fantasy points lost due to cards. So I'm just not interested in that in cash. But GPP, if you want to take the risk, him not taking a card, maybe getting a clean sheet or something interesting against Arsenal, go wild. Alonso makes a great stack with Hazard. I think it's really sharp this slate. I'm not going to be doing it very often. If I was playing 10 cards, I'd do it once out of 10, maybe twice out of 10, where I'll take Alonso and Hazard. There's going to be no ownership. They're a little bit too cheap than they should be, so it's just something I'm thinking about, not really crazy about. As I said, Coleman's out. I think the Wolves wingbacks have a great opportunity at a clean sheet. Too expensive on DraftKings, though. I would consider Johnny, but in terms of the clean sheet, it's very real. Chilwell is someone that I'm really interested in this slate. 4.7K is way too cheap for a guy that's consistently going to give you double digits. He struggled the last few weeks. I won't pretend that. But, however, his cross count is still through the roof, and he's not taking cards. So I really like that. And the same, he's not really taking fouls either. So there's just not a lot of negatives to go with Chilwell, other than he's not really doing as well as he probably could be. Still a really good floor. I don't mind it. Newcastle aren't that great. Keep going down. If Christie plays, he's half interesting, but he doesn't play very often. I think Aspeleta is way, way too cheap on Chelsea. 4.3K for a 90-minute player at home. Yeah, he's got way too much talent. It doesn't matter if Sal's going to be running up against him for 90 minutes. I just think Aspeleta has more than enough to pay off at 4.3K in cash. In GPP, probably not. I don't see the ceiling. One really interesting stat, basically the last 3 times Liverpool and Chelsea have played, a center back or a fullback has scored a goal. So either team. So basically you have a 1 in 8 chance if they do score, either of the two teams defenders score. I think Aspeleta is a really good option for that 1 in 8 chance. So if it does happen, 4.3K is a really good risk. I got no problem with that. Continue to scroll down. Bertrand isn't 4.1K. Suarez isn't a 4.2K player. Even though they're going up against Wolves, who are extremely talented, they're just not that cheap. Wolves aren't scoring a million goals. Southampton could get a clean sheet, and they're going to be completely unowned. And 4.1K, 4.2K, 8.3K for defenders, plus your goalkeeper, which is only, 4.3K? So, yeah, 12.5 for your full defensive set, or you could have Aguero for 10.3. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's or you could have both, which is a really great way to get at it with the Southampton defensive stack. Obviously, I still prefer going the Wolves side of things, but there's no question. 12.5 roughly for your full defensive stack. That could very easily pull 30 points without too much problems. So that's with clean sheets, obviously. Yeah, I really like it. I really like that idea. Getting cheaper here. Hadergajong on Huddersfield. Huddersfield really only have one way of getting forward, and it's through him. I don't think he's going to do anything other than maybe a mingling cash play at 3.7. There's no ceiling there. Just when you need someone to not score you negative points, you can just take Hadergajong, and he'll get it done for you. I do think there are some really cheap center backs here that need playing this slate. And I usually don't say that very often, but the first one's definitely Harry Maguire. 3.4K, even with a clean sheet bonus, is way, way too cheap for a center back who's gotten double digits twice this season. He's done it the second time, even without a goal. And don't think that Newcastle won't give him the opportunity to make 6 interceptions again. Not only do they have one of the lowest pass completion rates in the league, but all they do is cross the ball. So I highly expect Harry Maguire to be incredibly involved this slate. Take him in either format. 3.4K is too cheap for Harry Maguire. Is he going to score a goal? Probably not. Is he going to get a clean sheet bonus? Probably not. Is he going to get 7 fantasy points for 3.4K? Yeah, and that's more than enough whenever it allows you to get both Aguero and Harry Kane into a card, for example. Something along those lines. Like I said, don't chase that clean sheet. But in either format, 3.4K is more than enough. There's one more guy here that two technically, maybe 3, because 2 of them are on the same team. A Liverpool or Chelsea center back here is going to score a goal. I shouldn't say is going to score a goal. Statistically speaking, they are so likely to score this week, especially in comparison to everyone else in the slate. A lot of people are siding with David Luiz because he may get a free kick take. I think it's going to be a Liverpool defender off another set piece because Chelsea have shown week after week they're completely incapable of defending set pieces. And they're really hurt. Christensen's out. Rudiger's out. Emerson won't be playing. Excuse me, he won't be playing, and he played as a center back this midweek against Liverpool. So, yeah, Gary Cahill, great guy, decent dude, good bloke, as they say down in Aussie. But, he's not going to be able to keep up with Liverpool, despite being 2.7. But there is one cheap center back here that I think everyone needs to take a look at this slate. And he is on Brighton. So, again, a lot of people won't be instantly looking. I know couple guys like Drum or Le Marchand are always kicking around. I'm waiting for Messina to finally get some more minutes here before I can start really thinking about him. Went too far. Sorry. If I don't find him here, I'll just bring him up. Okay, I'm giving up. We'll do it this way. Shane Duffy, 2.6K. I thought it was 2.9. Sorry, that's why I couldn't find him. Quick review of my last weekend. Basically, every cent that I put into EPL and DraftKings on DraftKings last slate, EPL and NFL was gone almost instantly. So, yeah, my FanDuel did great. I had a ton of Knockhart paired with Shane Duffy on FanDuel. Why? Because they are the highest combined correlating play for a goal in the entire league right now. Basically, every time Duffy has scored or gotten an assist, Knockert's either been scoring or getting the assist with them. So I know it's a little obscure. I know it really doesn't work out. I'm not saying take Knockhart and Duffy this slate, but 2.6K for someone who is still putting up half-decent numbers without goals, and kind of with an assist, you kind of need that 7. He would have finished with 1 again. I don't know. I don't necessarily see him not getting defensive production in the slate. So don't be surprised. 2.6K can very easily pay off for someone like Shane Duffy. I know it's kind of unsustainable defensive output, but yeah, that's really all my defensive takes. Really small player pool. I'm basically just clicking Trippier and Digne as much as I can. I got some Chilwell in there too, a little bit of Hadagajong, but that's basically the 4 I'm playing on DraftKings repeatedly. So jumping over to midfield. Really quickly ripping down the list here. Mahrez, don't take him. Probably not playing. If he does play, it'll be very limited minutes. I think Hazard's super viable from 9.1K. He doesn't have the craziest ceiling, but he could very easily rock 2 goals against Liverpool. He showed midweek why he's so good. I think he has 5 goals in his past 6 games versus top 6 opponents. there's anyone that's a big game player, it's Eden Hazard. So a 9.1K, I got absolutely no problem with that. I'm going to be fading Salah just because I don't think he's playing very well lately. I kind of had a mini blow up at numerous different people this past week over Salah and how lucky everyone got with his goal. Because without his goal, he lined up perfectly as to finishing how he has been doing lately. And sure, even again, you want to take 12 on that. That's only going to get you 19, 20 fantasy points. And from his salary, that's not going to pay off whenever Aguero and Kane both have an opportunity at a hat trick this slate. So I'm just not digging Salah until he starts showing a little bit more productive life. Then I'll start considering him more. Even at 8.9K, I know that's super cheap. I'm just not digging it. I'm definitely going to be having some Sané across the board, both formats. 8.7K is too cheap. Man City should absolutely throttle Brighton this slate. Comparatively, Sterling, I don't see him playing the same amount of minutes as Sané. I'm hoping so anyways. I'm hoping Sané gets 90 minutes. And yeah, I think Sané is a much sharper play than Sterling. A lot of people in Richarlison, and it's not that I don't blame him because he's still putting out numbers, but the fact is that this is basically the definition of his previous season at Watford. The first 3 or 4 games, he absolutely destroyed everyone, and then come October, he dies off and completely falls off the face of the earth. I have articles going back weeks now how I've been calling this. On previous videos, I've been calling this is going to happen. Now, mind you, if he gets a goal off of a floor of 12 points, that's more than enough for you to break a slate from almost any salary. So I'm not sitting here telling you that Richarlison's incapable and won't do it or anything like that. It's simply that this is just kind of his thing. He just stops being effective come October. Yeah, I'm not on it. I can understand why other people are not on Willian. He's going to be coming off. I think Madison's a really interesting pick. As they talk about, Newcastle have allowed a lot of attacking midfield opportunities. So I don't mind Madison, especially in cash, but 8K is a little bit too expensive this slate, unfortunately, especially whenever you get in an Aguero or a Kane in cash. And then because the next guy you probably want to be taking here is Sigurdsson. He's been losing a few set pieces. Doesn't really bug me that much. The upside in this game is just insane. So all he needs is a little bit of floor and one simple assist, and he'll be paying off from 7.8K. That's he's an 8.5K player in any slate against any team. So we're getting a massive discount against a Fulham team that, like I said, no clean sheets. So it's coming. I expect a massive outing this week for Sigurdsson. And it's probably, like I said, the number 2 step after you take your big salary, especially in cash. I think Son Heung-min is another incredible option this slate, especially with Eriksen out. I think he could really feature massively. Only from 7.2K is way too cheap again for a player of his ability. So, yeah, I really have absolutely no issue with Son either format. I prefer him in GPP, but you can. We'll talk about him on FanDuel too. I think he's one of the more viable options here in FanDuel. Yeah, keep going down here a little bit. I'm not sure. Gundogan and David Silva, like I talked about, they're doing each other the same thing. So there's not a lot of point in taking both. You're going to have to do one or the other and hope they get 90 minutes. Lamea may start. I don't think he's going to because of his minutes over the midweek. Yeah, he's still someone at 6.4K. This is another guy I'm going with in cash pretty heavily is Moutinho. Has one of the highest cross averages in the league. He's taking corners. Wolves have one of the highest corner counts in the league. Southampton, not a great team, going to allow a ton of crosses. And you can even jump on the other side of the field and look at El Nasi in either format. His minutes are still garbage, but he puts in enough crosses that it really doesn't matter how many minutes he's on the field if you just need that many points. But yeah, there's no reason, in my opinion, not just to take Moutinho every single time. Like literally 9.5 out of 10 times I would take Moutinho over El Nasi. Maybe that's your indication to take El Nasi. I don't know. Shirley's probably going to get a goal. Tons of shots. Take some free kicks. again, like that's all we're really looking at here in this Everton Fulham game. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But yeah, you're going to have to get some exposure here in GPPs, especially GPPs. And truly, it's a great option, 6.2. Traore is another guy a lot of people have been talking up. He's an absolute magnet for production. He doesn't play enough, but I have a feeling sooner rather than later he's going to start seeing 90 minutes because that's just the kind of player he is. So yeah, I think actually I'll be honest, the 6.3 to 6,000 range is just absolutely jam packed with players. Right down the list, Ramsey's great for either format. Those minutes suck. It's tough. I think he is more than viable though, especially in GPP. His salary scripts really well with a lot of the builds I've been going with. Milner starts. It's hard not to take the set pieces taker against Chelsea, who are completely incapable of defending crosses and set pieces. So yeah, I'm not crazy about 6K, especially when you're getting much more ceiling opportunity from different guys, especially Sigurdsson. But it's there. Not Knockert this week. I've been taking him, like I said, the last few weeks, and it's been really paying off. I owe everything on FanDuel to him, but yeah, that's really my take on him. I think Ruben Neves is an interesting GPP play. I wouldn't take him in cash, especially in comparison to Moutinho, but he's still getting enough shots on net that Southampton again aren't really good enough to stop that. Those aren't cash numbers; those are GPP numbers. Waiting for that to happen again. So yeah, moving on from there. I think Richie's interesting. Not much more than that. Just interesting on a base level. His cross games are too infrequent. His floor is okay, but 5.3K. No reason to take that when you can take Jean-Michel Seri on Fulham. Probably going to smash the slate. One of my cash locks. I have absolutely no issue taking him and Sigurdsson at the exact same time. Sessegnon's another guy that you're going to have to consider too. He's taken some of the corners from Seri, and I have a feeling eventually more are going to land on his plate. This slate from 4.9K, I'm taking a lot more Sessegnon than I am Seri, just because that salary difference is really massive. It's actually literally the difference between Harry Kane and Aguero. Let me just, I think that's what it was earlier. 300. No, it's not, is it? No, my math is so bad. 400. So yeah, that's still roughly the estimate there that you're looking at. So I prefer Sessegnon. Allows me to get up to Aguero, but at the same time, neither are bad plays. And like I said, I'll talk a bit about them more later. Moyes just not viable in either format until Hogg's starting. If Hogg's starting, you can probably consider him in GPP. Pereira and Will Hughes are both really interesting to me. Way too cheap for two guys that are that capable. So Damari Gray on Leicester basically broke his ankle this midweek. Really ugly injury. I'll be very surprised if he's back this calendar year, let alone this season. So what that means is that Ghazal and Albrighton and Okazaki are all going to be fighting for starting minutes here. It's hard for me to say at this point what's going to happen. It's kind of a wait and see, unfortunately. I'm going to wait a little bit, a couple games here to see what happens. I think it's safe to say Albrighton's probably going to be the sub. I think Ghazal is going to be a starter with Okazaki. But the thing is that one of them is going to get 90 minutes here, and it's probably going to be Okazaki. I want to say Ghazal, but I have a feeling it's going to be Okazaki. Now, you're looking at this and saying, Rob, are you crazy? Where's his minutes then? Well, Okazaki's been on this team now since they won the like he was a huge part of their championship when they won the English Premier League a few years ago. He's a big part of that. So I don't think that Leicester will just look past him. They know what he is and can rely on him. And it wouldn't surprise me if he started seeing more minutes. But yeah, this 4.4K is a massive discount. If whoever ends up starting. Have No Fear Rocky and GPP. I'm a little bit more hesitant in cash, that's for sure, but I have no issue for that in GPP. I hope Damari Gray, wish him all the best, but yeah, the 4.4 is there, pretty interesting. Scrolling down a little bit further, Naby Keita is a really interesting GPP option to me. In the midweek against Chelsea, he had a ton of shots that were all very close. I think he even hit the bar. So he's not someone that Chelsea shut down. They showed that in the midweek. So I don't mind him in GPP. I'm actually calling a Chiesa goal this weekend from only 4.1K. That's pretty interesting to me. I want to take Guendouzi, but he's not getting minutes, and that upsets me, so I'm not going to talk about it. Billing's interesting to me in the sense that he's putting up numbers even against poor, strong teams. So I don't mind him. I think there's a lot better options, that's for sure. But 3.9K, again, is really hard to deny. If you're thinking about Hadagajong from that same range, you may as well think of Belling in the same sense, too, because he does a lot of the same kind of numbers for the same risk. So, yeah, that's something I'm considering. But there are still a couple more guys down here that I've had my eye on, namely Jonjo Shelvey. He's starting to come back into form. Way too cheap. 3.7K is just way too cheap for Jonjo Shelvey. Last season, he absolutely tore apart Leicester. Absolutely embarrassed them with through ball after through ball after through ball. So I have no issue considering Shelvey in either format, really, for 3.7K. He isn't that big of a risk against the Leicester side, who are almost guaranteeing a goal. But that's really it for my midfield takes. There isn't really anything at the bottom. I'm interested to see what Spurs do without Eriksen. These three guys could become very interesting plays. They aren't particularly interesting, but they could become interesting given the Eriksen news. But yeah, that's really my my midfield takes. I don't think there's anyone else down here in midfield that I was looking at other than really Billing and Jonjo Shelvey. But yeah, jumping over to forwards. So I think there's a lot to be had this late in forwards. You can make a play on Aguero one or two ways. The first way is that he's going to play enough minutes, and Man City are basically propped to have one of the highest goal totals of the season so far. So I don't know. It's really hard to ignore Aguero from 10.3K. But if you think he's only going to play 50 or 60 minutes again, you can very, very confidently and very easily pivot to Harry Kane for a 9.9K. Especially in the head-to-heads, I think this is a really sharp pivot. He's putting up shots again at a rate that will supplement anything he doesn't do in the score sheet. So, for example, if he didn't score a goal here, he still would have finished with 8 fantasy points, roughly 8 or 9 fantasy points, which, yeah, isn't much to write home about, but still more than enough in cash to not leave you crying, wondering what happened, like Callum Wilson did to me last slate. Thank you, Callum Wilson. But yeah, that's really between those two. You kind of have to make your own decision there. I'm on the Aguero train. He's just shooting and putting too many shots on net at such a consistent rate that, like, yeah, okay. Nine shots in 75 minutes. It doesn't even matter if he's getting 60 minutes. 6 shots in 60 minutes. Like, Harry Kane's not doing that in 90 minutes. So, yeah, I like Aguero, but if you're going to, you got to go Kane. I already talked about Hazard a little bit. I think he's interesting. Sane talked about. Okay, so here's what we want to talk about with Arsenal. The reason I'm not on Arsenal this slate is if basically this is what I do to determine my peak interest level in forwards. Man City is the most expensive team. Tottenham's the second most expensive team. Chelsea's the third most expensive. Liverpool are the fourth. And Arsenal are the fifth. So what this means to me now is at the end of the slate, we're going to be able to look back at the goals and say Arsenal was the fifth highest producing team of the slate because they were around the fifth most expensive. Now you can see, obviously, Everton's roughly sixth. Leicester would be seventh. Wolves would be eighth. And Fulham would be ninth. Now, let's break this down here really quickly. Since February of last year, no player in English professional football has more goals than Alexander Mitrovic. All of English professional football. No player has more goals than Mitrovic. He's priced 6.8K, playing absolutely 90-minute games against a goaltender who, as mentioned, is absolutely incapable overpriced this week of getting clean sheet bonuses. And this isn't new. This is multiple seasons of history now showing that Everton really, really struggle for clean sheets. Now, am I saying that Mitrovic's going to go out here and score 3 goals and break the slate wide open? No. Can he? Absolutely, yes. But this is just way too cheap. It's way too cheap. This game, again, I talked up last slate about Callum Wilson and Glenn Murray and Christian Eriksen being a really sneaky stack. I don't see how this game stack doesn't score 7 goals, like a 4-3 goal here, 4-3 score, 3-2 at the bare minimum. Both teams are scoring. Like, it's literally like bet your whole bankroll. Both teams are scoring. It's really hard to deny this fact. It's like both teams are incapable of keeping the ball in the net. Both teams have incredibly viable options. Both teams have incredible attacks. So yeah, go wild. But let's talk a little bit more about forwards here first, because there are a few other names. Like I was saying, I'm just not into Arsenal because I don't think they're going to be the 5th best scoring team this slate. Everton and Fulham should absolutely smash an Arsenal 2-0, 2-1 win. Production and goal total. So I'm just not into Arsenal as being that valuable. 8.3K for Lacazette, I can understand. I can get behind it in GPPs. He's not that bad of forward, and he's shooting the ball a lot, especially recently. So I really don't have an issue with Lacazette. If we're going to take his previous scores as an indication, he's pretty streaky and does better against the poor teams. I don't know. That's hard, especially when you just scroll down, look a bit, and look, the Vardy party's back in session. 7 shots, 3 shots on goal. Like, 2 of them were, I don't know, guys. Like, I'm not going to take Jamie Vardy in cash. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm doing here. But you can't own every single forward. So if you're taking Aguero and let's say Mitrovic, do you really want to use that utility and only 5.4 cap space on an 8.3 Lacazette? Really? Is that really the next viable decision? I would say no every single time. 4.9. And you have to spend up for your keepers and your defenders. So unless you're taking John Joe Shelby and Billing as your midfielders, this really isn't working out. So it's just Lacazette isn't the second step you should be taking. It isn't the first step you should be taking. It isn't even the 5th step you should be taking. So I'm just not into Arsenal this slate for that reason. Now, is that saying Arsenal can't go out and win and do really well and make me look completely wrong? Absolutely, they're totally capable of doing that. But that just isn't where I'm pinning them this week, so I'm not into it. Going back to forward, sorry. There still is a few more names here. I talked about Sigurdsson, just get him in, especially in the forward slot. Makes so much more sense. But another name I really, really am digging this slate, other than Mitrovic, obviously, is Jimenez on Wolves. He's up there with Mitrovic and Aguero and Harry Kane and everyone else in terms of shot totals. He has a massive shot totals this season. I really don't have any issue with taking him in either format. Cash is a little steep at 7.3K when Mitrovic is literally the best forward in England right now for 500 cheaper. And again, that 500 is a pretty big difference at the end of the day. So I don't know. I like Jimenez. He's not my favorite forward option, but I like him way, way, way more than Lacazette and some of the other, Salah and Hazard both. I would take Jimenez over Salah and Hazard basically 7 out of 10 times. I just see Wolves having a much better game ceiling-wise, and they don't even have ceilings. But that's the thing here. He gets a goal from 9.8, from 5.9K salary, 6K salary. He's breaking the slate. Hard for me to not like Jimenez despite all the other forward options here. If I was to, again, label my forwards, Aguero, Kane's toss-up, though I like Aguero. 2 would definitely be Mitrovic. 3 would be probably Jamie Vardy. for Jimenez. Just so you see where I'm coming with everything here. Probably maybe Sane or who was the other cat that I was thinking of? Son Heung-min from Spurs at 7.2K. Those 5 guys are all super legit. There's obviously some other names that we talked about. Like, that's a pretty big discount in forwards. If Troy ends up starting, you're saving mad money by using him. It allows you to spend on average 600 more a player, basically. Don't be afraid of that. Normally, I like Danny Ings in these kinds of situations, but like I said, Wolves haven't allowed a forward to score yet this season, so it's just not what I'm into. If he starts again, Lamea 6.4K is a massive discount in terms of what you can use up front there. Another really big discount. But other than that, I really don't have too many other forward takes. That's probably what I'm going to be doing a lot of right there. Maybe not for cash. I may rock the Seri instead. But yeah, that's absolutely Ryan Sessegnon is totally in play in cash, 100% play in cash. I want to quickly on DraftKings here before we jump over there onto FanDuel talk about this game because really it gets pretty crazy what you can actually do here when you take some of these discounts. There's a decent game stack. You can see basically hoping for some sort of set piece action here onto a Mitrovic goal. Maybe Mitrovic get a goal on top of that. These guys are both bringing mad floor, great floor too. So again, any kind of offensive upside from all these awesome floor plays, and you are flying. And this still allows you to do something like Rio Patricio and have tons of money left to spend over. Put in Trippier in there for 6.6K, and you're flying. You're absolutely all over the place here. Hard not to do something like that on DraftKings. They've massively underpriced this game. The keepers are so bad that you're looking at 2 goals each quite easily. So all over this game, basically, if you do this, and just pick names from this list, you're going to win. This should be the high scoring games of the slate. Now, obviously, if you want to go a little bit defensive over here, you can. I think that's really the main place in DraftKings is the City, the Spurs, and the Fulham and the Everton game. All sorts of edges, all sorts of salary discounts, and should be all sorts of goals. Make sure you get those games in DraftKings. Now let's jump over to FanDuel here really quickly. Same idea. Erison's too expensive. Way too much risk with Liverpool. Not enough saves. Probably where you should start. Avoid. Still no clean sheet, so probably have to avoid. No clean sheet, probably have to avoid. Interesting, way too cheap again over here. And like, if you thought the Southampton defensive stack was cheap in DraftKings, it's absurd over here. But yeah, that's really my looks over here. And again, I was looking at this. This is what really caught my attention the first time was 500 cheaper than literally every other playing keeper on the slate. And I'm still not sure if Spurs are worth that. That's where our main man on not Huddersfield, on Brighton should be Matt Ryan. And he is. Good. Never mind. I take that back. Eat my own words. So yeah, defense. There we go. Again, way too cheap on DraftKings, adequately priced here considering his defensive scoring set. Alonso, same idea. Duffy, same idea. Super expensive over here because of all the interceptions he's going to get. But over in DraftKings, just probably a little bit too cheap. Is there upside? Barely, but it's still too cheap for that barely upside there is. Holebas is probably a little bit too expensive over here. I'd rather see him in the 5.5K. Way too cheap. Should be at the very top, but isn't. So we'll have to roll with that as much as we can. And as I said, Ryan Bertrand's over here. Way cheaper is Suarez though. But yeah, they really aren't on my radar. The defensive stack that I'm shooting for over here is absolutely 100% the Wolves. I think, again, when you consider how low scoring this game could be, getting Doherty and Johnny for 5K each is just way too cheap. Way too cheap. So, yeah, 15K for those three, I have no problem with. If you happen to see the card I tried to delete as I opened this, again, same idea. This is what I was stacking. I think this is the best stack in FanDuel by far. Defensive stack, excuse me. It's not even close. So yeah, I really like that. But in terms of midfielders, this gets pretty interesting because obviously it's a little bit different. There's no midfield forwards. I still like Sigurdsson. I really don't like Hazard on here. It's just too expensive in my opinion. James Madison, again, too expensive, but someone I really like. It's just too much. Not interested in paying as like a top, 10, 15 midfielder over here. I just don't see that happening with all the other random possibilities. Aaron Ramsey, same situation. Really like him. Too expensive over here. There's a lot of, I think, some really cheap midfield options that people can really take advantage of. This is probably the most expensive that you're going to want to spend. 8K on Moutinho. Now, obviously, I can understand why someone may jump on Richarlison, but yeah, I'm more on the Moutinho side of things. Again, Sari, 7.5, way too cheap over here. Way too cheap over here. Lamia, if he starts 7.5K, too cheap over here. Way too cheap. I still think that's a really interesting goal GPP chase. Goal GPP chase. Same idea again with those two. Ryan Sessegnon, 6.5K. Like, yes, all day on FanDuel, all day. You don't even have to consider that. Way too cheap for someone, especially if you've seen 90 minutes. And again, Traore, 6.5K, way too cheap. You can even drop out to Moutinho if you want and put in Sigurdsson up there. It's just too cheap for these two. I'm not as bullish on Traore. I'm insane bullish on Sessegnon on both sides of the slate. Just too cheap. Doesn't matter what format. 4.5K, 4.9, 6.5, way too cheap. Ghazal, another guy I've been talking about. A little bit too expensive over here, considering minutes risk. But yeah, John Joe Shelby always has the 5 pass possibility over here. 6K maybe tiny bit too cheap, but I'm not really that interested in him on FanDuel. The only reason I really like him on DraftKings is because he's 3 point whatever 7K, I think. So that's really my reason for him over there. Again, it's just interesting to see how Spurs line up. That could be something to watch. But yeah, there really isn't too much over else on FanDuel from these low salaries. It's these two that where you're going to get your big discounts. You shouldn't really go lower than that or higher than 8K Moutinho on FanDuel. That's just my opinion, though. Obviously, I don't have that set in stone. It's just all the builds and reviewing the salaries here. That makes the most sense because, yeah, it's very easy to get Sigurdsson in when you do that, along with Aguero and someone else. So, yeah, I'm not going to lie. FanDuel has Aguero priced too highly and Harry Kane too highly. What I actually really like doing this slate is going between Jimenez and Mitrovic with Son, who you'll notice here is, again, way too cheap for this site. Has him way too cheap, 8K. I hope you heard my sigh there, the pain in that. Like, there's nothing wrong with these guys. Obviously, on DraftKings, I like them way more because their salaries aren't literally breaking you in half. Over here, this salary is insane. You literally can't take Sigurdsson with Sessegnon and who is the other cheap guy over here? Sorry, my mind's and Traore. If he starts, like that's too expensive. If you're taking an Aguero, like you literally have to cut your feet out somewhere. You can't. There's no way at all you're taking like Trippier and Digne on here with Aguero and Sigurdsson. It's just not possible whatsoever. Again, you're completely cutting every single possible footing out that you have to make a viable play. But in terms of the forwards, listen to me doing my doing my laugh there. There's absolutely no reason he should be that expensive in any site ever. These two should be switched around to start with. So yeah, easy fade, probably not even playing. Hard not to play, but that's just way expensive. 10.5K. That's priced heavily off his performance last slate, which was really good. I would rather him on DraftKings where he's just way cheaper. But yeah, this is my zone down in here. Hard not to say that's roughly 10 shots this slate, 8 to 10 shots. You may get the same from one Aguero or close to that with a Kane. But yeah, I really like those two, especially on FanDuel. I probably prefer Mitrovic and DraftKings because of his 6.8K price tag. But yeah, in terms of how they compare to 12K, too cheap again. You're just going to have to line that up. And this is definitely the play over in FanDuel. I'm still interested to see how Spurs line up. But if they do what I assume they're going to do, it's really hard not to look at Son from 8K. Is probably the cheapest cash viable forward, in my opinion, on FanDuel for this slate. There really isn't anything cheaper that you can kind of rely on for any kind of cash script whatsoever. This still carries a ton of cash risk, but at the same time, it's just the last viable option here. Sure, Moore could play, but that isn't really, I don't know. It's not my thing. I'm into the Mitrovic, and I'm into the Jimenez, and probably the Aguero. But yeah, in cash, this is like, if you're taking Aguero in cash, this is literally what you have to do. You have no other options. Mitrovic and Jimenez are too expensive if you hope to get any kind of viable midfield and viable defense. Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing darts on the board, hoping that people hit. So yeah, that's really my FanDuel breakdown with my DraftKings breakdown this slate. Yeah, I'm not really sure what else there is to say here. I know that there's Champions League coming up next week. Let's take a quick look at the Champions League schedule. There's my English coming back to me. Sorry. So yeah, Man City have to go to Hoffenheim on Tuesday for the early game. It's not the worst trip in the world, but yeah, my memory serves me correctly. I'm pretty sure Kevin De Bruyne was the captain of Hoffenheim for a few years. Wolfsburg, my bad. Wolfsburg, I was close. Another German team. I apologize to any Hoffenheim and Wolfsburg fans out there. Yeah, my mistake. Hoffenheim played who last season? I know Dortmund played Spurs. Anyways, they're not pushovers. They're not just someone that's going to bend right over. And Man City's going to have to be considering this a little bit. So let's take a look at Man United host Valencia on Tuesday. That'll be a really tough game. Valencia are definitely more than talented enough to give them problems. This is going to be a huge game, massive game. Liverpool looks like they are traveling to Italy to play Napoli. Oh, that'll be tough on Wednesday. Wow, what a run of schedules for Liverpool. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, I'm probably wrong knowing my recent run of right-wrong form. But Southampton before that. So that wasn't that bad. But Spurs the week before that. So basically, they played Spurs, Chelsea twice, PSG, and now Napoli. And well, they're being at least they're getting all the hard stuff over with early. But yeah, that's pretty interesting. Hello, talk about interesting. Hosting, wow, that will be an interesting game, and that really changes a lot of ways we should be approaching Spurs this week. Considering it's Huddersfield, how much are Spurs really looking ahead at this? Obviously, Eriksen's out. Oh, Eriksen has been, I'm assuming, ruled out. But yeah, literally wouldn't surprise me not to see Dele Alli this weekend at all. He played the full 120 minutes. And they have to host Barcelona on Wednesday. Wowzers. Anyways, sorry. That was kind of a waste of time. But yeah, it does change a little bit how we should approach Tottenham. And Man City, really, too. Tuesday early. Aguero 90 minutes? I don't know. Kane 90 minutes? Yeah, it's going to happen. But Aguero 90 minutes is the real question mark here. They very easily could just go with more Gabriel Jesus and Hoffenheim. Anyways, just spitballing there. Let me take a quick look here. Want to make sure I didn't miss any questions from anyone. Yeah, looks good. So yeah, thanks a lot for tuning in this slate. I hope everyone has lots of luck this weekend. I hope it's better than last weekend, that's for sure. But yeah, basically, good luck, everyone. Thanks a lot for tuning in. Make sure to check out RotoPros.com. Hit me up on Twitter, RadRobDiamond. Hopefully, get in some questions before the slate starts. I'm kind of hoping to eventually, maybe this weekend, have a pre-lock show, or excuse me, a post-lock show, a pre-game post-lock show for 30, 40 minutes, run over all the lineups with everyone, see what we can figure out, see if there's something to take from that. Because I think soccer is one of the few sports where it's 100% reliant on lineups, where NHL you know the lines ahead of time. MLB, it's kind of touch and go sometimes, but you generally know the batting order well ahead of time. So yeah, I'm thinking about starting one of those. If that interests you at all, please get in contact with me, let me know. But yeah, that's basically it. Thanks a lot, everyone, for tuning in. Like I said, rotopros.com. Jump over there, hit me up on Twitter. Best of luck this weekend. Hopefully, I'll see some of you at the top. But yeah, let's take back off screen share. Get to see my face one more time. Take care, everyone. Have a great weekend, and hopefully, be back later for some NFL. Later.